Okay, welcome everyone. If you have looked at your screen, you would see that we have the pleasure of welcoming back Eddie Chazan, who is just arriving. I think El Al had a special flight just for him to bring Eddie Chazan. It's called the Eddie Chazan Express. I think he said he paid $248,000 for the trip. And Eddie, it's good to have you. We learned for his father, whose yahrzeit was today, Amram ben Simcha. Hashem should have an aliyah, should be a melz yosher for his family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. We are sponsored in our tour through this Masechta by Shalom Fogel, Ilan Nishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yodaya, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas God, Yosef ben Tziyam ben Yaakov Zev, and for a great Shidduch V'chai Tzivya Bas Shoshana Gittel, by Baruch Ian, Ilan Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Yona, Avram ben Shmuel HaKoyin, and Lefut Shalema for Liba Bas Anya, by A.B. Spry, and for the spiritual, emotional, and physical protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel, Ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We learn sponsored by Eddie Chazan, by Mark Frankel, in loving memory of his father, Yisrael Tzvi Ben Chaim Yeshua Falak, and by Berish Gesemin, L'Refuah Shalema for Shoshana Bas Adina, she should have a Refuah Shalema B'Sech Shachar Yisrael. We learned to be Mekayim the mitzvah of B'dibar Tabam, La'asa Yisnachas Ruach L'Yotzreinu. We are holding by Elohada Amarava, which is 4 lines from the bottom of Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis. Four lines from the bottom of Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis. Elohada Amarava Yad L'Kmitza. We learn out of Gzei Rishava Yad to tell us that Kmitza has to be with the right hand. Regel L'Chalitza, that Chalitza of the Yavama is done with the right foot. Oizen L'Ritzia, that we bore a hole in the Eved that wants to stay till Yovel in his right ear. Lomali, why do we need Yad L'Kmitza? Midirabba Baba Chana Nafka. We know that from Rabba Baba Chana because it says Kahuna by Kmitza, and we said anywhere where it says Kayin or Etzba, it's Biyamin. Says the Gemara, well, we'll answer that simply. Chad l'kaimetz, v'chad l'kiddush kaimetz. One is to tell us that the actual kmitza has to be taken with the right hand, and one is to tell us when we put the kmitza into a klei shares, you have to do it with the right hand. Says the Gemara, Ul Reb Shimon d'loi boy kiddush kaimetz. According to Reb Shimon, who says you don't have to put the kmitza into a klei sharis. You could put it straight on the mizbeach with your hand. Olamandi Amal Reb Shimon Nami boy kiddush kaimetz. Even if Reb Shimon holds you need to do it, but bismol achshrei machsher, he says you're allowed to do it with the left hand. So then yad derava lamali, what does he use yad for? Says the Gemara, ila kmitza atzma, if it's to tell us that the kmitza itself has to be with the right hand, and it would be a svar to say that Reb Shimon needs that, because remember Reb Shimon said that kahuna alone without etzba is not enough to teach us yamin. But you know that from a different source, mid Rabbi Yehuda Breid Reb Chia Nafka, because this is especially for Reb Shimon's opinion. He learns out that the kmitza has to be with the right hand from a drasha of Rabbi Yehuda Breid Reb Chia. Damer Rabbi Yehuda Breid Reb Chia, my time with Rabbi Shimon says that sometimes sometimes it needs a mincha needs the right hand, and sometimes it can be done with the left hand, because it says the Amakra, it says about the mincha, Kodesh Kadashim Hi, that the mincha is most holy, Kechates v'Ka'ashim, like a sin offering and like a guilt offering. And Rabbi Yehuda Breid Reb Chia says, why is the mincha compared both to a sin offering and a guilt offering? Bala of the biyad, if the kohen does it with the hand, in other words, he takes the kmitza with a hand and puts it on the mizbeach with his hand, Oiv v'yimin kechatas. He has to do it with the right hand, like kechatas, which is the blood is daubed with the right hand. Bala oiv the bekli, but if he's using the kaimitz with a vessel, in other words, he puts the kmitza in the vessel and he takes it to the mizbeach with a vessel. Oiv the besmail ka'ashim. It can be done like with the left hand, like by a guilt offering. So, but either way, we see that that's where he learns out that the kmitza, if done with the hand, has to be done with the right hand. So then, what does he use yad for? Says the Gemara, the kmitza of the mincha of a sinner. Now, the mincha of a sinner is treated shabbily. It doesn't have shemen, and it doesn't have levina. It doesn't have oil. It doesn't have frankincense. So, it's Reb Shimon's opinion that the reason why the mincha v'chayte doesn't have oil and frankincense is because since it's a sinner, shelo yeh karbana muhuda. We don't like his carbon to look nice. After all, it represents sin. So, ki kavetz lo b'smal, I might think that Reb Shimon says, since it's already a shabby-like carbon, I might think even if you do it the kmitza with the left hand, nami tiskasha. That's why it says the extra gzeir shava yad kamash malan, that it has to be done with the right hand. New Mishnah, just getting underway over here on a beautiful start of the second day of Chol Hamoed, as we start the Ushpizin of Moshe Rabbeinu. Ushpizin of Moshe Rabbeinu. Chashav Ezach. My Ushpizin. Moshe is the same letters as Hashem. Because Loiro Panim El Panim Kamoshe. Nobody saw Hashem face to face like Moshe. So Moshe, Mem Shin Hey, is the same letters that spell Hashem. And also, if you remember, the Medrash says, why did Hashem pick Moshe? Because he saw he was taking care of his flock, and there was a sheep that had fever, and Moshe Rabbeinu picked the sheep up on his shoulders and carried him back. So Hashem said, if that's the way you take care of your flock, I want you to take care of my flock. So that's why Moshe is the same letters as Miseh, because he was chosen from a sheep. Now, I'll tell you one more thing about Moshe. You see, Shidduchanam in Shemayim, Li Moshe. So Moshe is easy, that's 345. So Li Moshe is 375. That's the same gematria as Tzipora. Because Tzipora was slated for Li Moshe, to Moshe. So Tzipora, and I wish it was my own pshat, it's not. The Rabbeinu Ephraim was one of the Rishonim, says this, that Tzipora is B'gematria L'Moshe. And I don't want to get into what Herschel is B'gematria of, but L'Moshe, another time we'll get into that, No, don't worry, it's not B'gematria Al Capone, don't worry. Okay. Says the Gemara, Barry Cement, that's a different story. You ever heard of the Castellano brothers? But anyway, says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Nishpach Adam ala Ritzpah, if the blood spilled from the neck of the animal straight onto the floor before it's caught with the clay shares, even though he tried to clean it up and gather it up, puzzle, because if it fell on the floor, it already becomes disqualified. Tan Rabbanan. So now the Gemara tells us you have to receive the blood directly from the animal's neck. Tan Rabbanan, v'lokach hakoyin hamoshiach midam hapor. The anointed koyin takes from the blood of the par. So first of all, hapor, that's a hey idea. So that tells us midam hanefesh, only the lifeblood. In other words, that's the blood that spurts out with a force. V'loy midam ha'ar, not from the blood that comes out when you cut the skin, the initial blood of a cut, that doesn't count. V'loy midam hatamsis, and not the blood that oozes out later on. Midam hapar, Dam me'apor yekablenu. The blood has to be straight from the neck of the bull. Now you'll say it doesn't say that. It says midam apor. It doesn't say dam me'apor. How do you know this? The isol kedaitach midam apor ksiv. Now normally when it says me, it means some and not all. The isol kedaitach midam apor kidichsiv, that it means only some of it. Midam vafilu mixas dam. It's all right even if you get some of the blood. It's not true. You have to have all of the blood of the bull. You have to get all of the lifeblood. So then what does it mean, midam hapar? Shenema, because it's another pasuk, says kol dama yishbach, and all of the blood has to be spilled onto the altar. So you see you need to have all of the blood. So then what are you going to do with midam hapar, from the blood of the par? Elamidam apor, we take the mem and remove it from dam and add it to hapar and read it dam me hapar. Midam apor, dam me apor yekablenu. Blood straight from the neck of the bull you have to accept. Now how do you do that? How do you play a game and take it from the dam, midam, and put it by hapar? The Kesavar, and he holds that this is a valid method of expounding the Torah. Geirin, that we could remove it from one word, or Moisifin and add it to the other word, V'darshan. So we, instead of midam hapar, we take the mem from the dam and read dam me hapar, adding it to hapar. Gufa. Rabbi Yehuda Rav. The one who shechs has to receive all of the blood of the par. All the blood of the par has to be spilled on the mizbeach. Says the Gemara. But that pasuk is talking about the remnants of the blood. See, here we're talking about the par kohen gadol on Yom Kippur, and after the blood was offered in the Kodesh Kodashim and against the Paraichas and on the Mizbeach Hazav, they spilled the remainder of the blood on the base of the Mizbeach HaChitzon, on the western base of the Mizbeach HaChitzon. So the Gemara says, well, B'shirayim Ksiv, that's talking about the remnants of the blood. So how could you say that you have to catch all of the blood? Says the Gemara, Im Eino Yin L'Shirayim, it obviously can't be referring just to the remnants. Then all of the blood isn't left anymore. So Taneu Inyan B'Kabbalah, it must be talking about catching the blood, and that you have to catch the blood from the neck of the par. Now, this is a very interesting thing. When you shech the animal, you got to lift the knife, because the blood on the knife is the initial cut of the skin. That blood is no good. That blood is not lifeblood. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Ashoichet tzarich sheyagvia sakin lamala. He has to lift the knife high. Shenemar v'lokach midam apar. He takes from the blood of the par, and we darshin midam apar v'loy midam apar v'davar achar. Not the blood of the bull and something else, and the blood of the skin. That's no good. Says the Gemara, well, how do we wipe the blood off from the knife? Obviously this blood is no good, so we got to wipe off the knife before using it again. So the dam sakin b'may mekaneachle, what do they wipe the blood off with? So here, this is very interesting. They take a clay shares and they rub it off on the rim of the clay shares. Amrabaya, Bisvas Mizrach, on the rim, on the edge of one of the bowls that we catch the blood with. And the reason why, I hear static in the back, but don't worry, it's probably just, the internet, says the Gemara, and the reason why is because, it's the basin is called Kiforei Zahav. And kafar means to wipe. Where do we find that kafar is wipe? So, for example, Barry, before Yom Kippur, has a lot of sins. And Yom Kippur comes and wipes away the sins. Wipes away the sins. So the Gemara says, Kidchsiv, Kiforei Zav, basins of gold. It was called basins of gold because you wipe the blood off on the edge. What do you want to say, Barry?
Wouldn't it make a pagam in the knife, rubbing it against the...
No, you do it, first of all, you don't do it on the edge of the knife to make a pagima, you do it on the side of the knife.
So he stops it by the sheet, cuts through the skin first, and then he stops to the sheet?
No. What it means is he cuts, and he goes through and cuts the simanim, but since the knife has on it the blood of the skin, the other blood spurts out. But the blood of the skin is no good. Okay. So in order that it shouldn't fall in the basin, he lifts it up, that it shouldn't fall into the basin.
He just holds the knife.
He holds it up, right, away from the bowl. Yeah. So that way the blood on the knife doesn't get into the basin. And then if you're lucky, Barry is over there and you hit him in the head. But yeah, I know, that's the scar that you have on your head, I know. In Yeshua, we used to call him Scarface. Now, you know what? It's a time. I like to wait because I'm hoping more people will come. But I should, as I just said, I should welcome in people already. As we welcome in A.B. Spry, Shalom Fogel, Jack Warman, Yaakov Warman, Mark Frankel, and Menachem Umansky, Rebel Yafi, Mel Zachter, Yitzi Fuchs, who's freezing there in the sukkah, Shimon Klein, Dr. Guy, Yisrael Fisher, Danny Vogel, Barry Cement, Rabbi Kranz, Eddie Chazan, the one and only Eddie Chazan, one of the great patrons of El Al, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, Shelley Zeitner, Ilya Shutman, Yitzi Muller, Nachman Chapler. Here in Shul we have Berish Kesselman, Michal Avram, and Reb Kraus, and we have Herschel Waldner and Ruvain Shannon, and just coming in for the second Amud is Daniel Rosenberg, and for Daniel and Rabbi Kranz, who are just joining us, we are holding 2 lines from the bottom of Daf Chav Hei Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Yirmiyah Bar Abba, HaShoichet, the one that shechs, Sarach Shiyitin Vridin L'Soich HaKeli. Before he shechs, he has to position the jugular vein towards the clay sharis, because included in the lifeblood is the blood in the jugular vein that spurts out, and therefore you trail it towards the clay sharis. Imarnami. Similarly, we learned Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, Vridin, the jugular vein, Tzarich sheyiru avir keli. It has to be facing the airspace of the keli. Says the Gemara, here's an interesting shayla. This could only happen to Mark Frankel, only happen in Baylor Kinwood. Mark Frankel is, he's being mekabel the dam, and what happens is the bottom of the clay sharis falls out. Now the blood is positioned in the ear space over the clay sharis when the bottom falls out. Now, if the blood was already in the ear space before the bottom fell out, we could say it's considered as it landed, and it's good, and then if it falls out and it falls to the ground, we could scoop it up, because if it's caught and then it spills, we could scoop it up. But what happened over here is the blood was positioned over the clay sharis. It didn't go within the walls of the keli. It was in the ear space over the clay sharis, and the bottom fell out. So what's the din? Do we say that it's enough that it was in the ear space over the clay showers? So boy mine Rav Asi mi Rav Yochanan. Rav Asi inquired of Rav Yochanan, Hoya Mekabel, if Mark was catching the blood, v'nifchasu shulei mizrak, and the bottom of the clay showers fell out, at shelo higio dam la'over, before the blood reached the interior of the ear space of the keli. Mao. Do we say aver if it's in the ear space above the clay showers? She'ein soifei lanuach, where it's not destined to come to rest, because the bottom fell out. Do we stay still kemunach dami? Do we say it's as if it rested in the ear space? Olo kemunach dami. Or is it not considered as it rested there? Now, here's the thing. He shechted the animal. The blood was in the ear space above, and then the bottom fell out before it reached the interior. Do we consider it as if it landed inside or not? Amalei, so he says Tanitua. We learned about a din of the red cow. Now remember, the water that is used for the ash of the red cow, if it was held in a regular container, it's going to be disqualified. So we learned Chavyis shemunachas tachas hazinuk. You have a bucket, and the bucket is placed under a flow coming out of a pipe. So the din is mayim shebesoicha v'shebechutza la psulan. Water that's in its ear space of a regular bucket, or that falls inside the bucket, that's already just drawn water, and then it's psulin, then it's puzzled to be used for the mayim chayim of the mechatas, to mix with the ashes of the paraduma. However, tseirif piola zinuk, if you put the bucket straight flush with the pipe, mayim shebesaycha psulim, water that goes into the bucket is puzzle. V'shebechutzala, but water that's still in the pipe. Now the pipe, by the way, isn't mayim shuvin because it's open at both ends, so that's not considered a bucket. But water that's still in the pipe, that's not considered as if it's already in the bucket, because water in the pipe is a separate entity. It's in the pipe. So v'shebechutzala, water that's in the pipe is ksheira. So the Gemara says, yeah, but that's different. There, it's over the bucket, but the bucket has a bottom. So where it has a bottom, we understand that it's as if it's in the bucket. Our question is water that's not destined to land because the bottom fell out. And you resolve it with water that has a bottom? Says, well, you're right. Tarte kaboy minei. Actually, there's two questions that we were inquiring. Imtim tzalaimer, aver she'en seifei lanuach, since the bottom fell out, when it's above the ear space and it's not in the interior. Lav kemunach dami, it's not considered like it landed inside. So then when the blood falls on the ground, you can't scoop it up because it was never caught in the keli. What about if it's in the ear space on top and the bottom didn't fall out? What's the din then? Now here would be a case like this would be if, let's say, water was coming out of the pipe and it was over the ear space of the bucket, and then you came with a keli to catch it for the mechatas, do we say it's too late? Because since it was over the ear space of the bucket, it's as if it was in the bucket already, and therefore it's mayim she'uven. Now, this is the way, this version is the way Rav Yosef taught it. Rav Yosef Masnei Hachi. This is the version that Rav Yosef taught it. Rav Kahana Masnei, Rav Kahana said, Chavyas boiminei. He asked, what's the law with water that's over the jug? And upashit le chavyas. And he resolved it that you see that water that comes on a pipe and that's over the jug is considered as if it's in the jug and it's puzzle. Rabba Masnei, Rabba says, Chavyas ba'imine. He asked him the question of the water over the jug, upashit le mizrak. And he resolved it from the din of blood that comes out of the animal and into a basin. Because when the blood spurts out of the jugular, it goes first through the ear space and then into the clay sharis. Iyata moide b'mizrak, she'i efshaloi b'loi zinuk. It's not possible without squirting through the air. So it's never caught directly by the clay sharis. But still it's enough. It was kept over the air. It's okay. So that means that as soon as it squirts, it's considered to already become as part of the keli. So here too also, once the water goes over the keli from the pipe, it's considered as if it's in the keli, and therefore it's disqualified to be used for the mechatas. Now, we're going to learn that when the mayim chayim goes into a keli, if it's trailed into the keli, even for the purpose of mechatas, if it's channeled into the keli with something that could be mekabel tumah, it's puzzle for the mechatas. You're going to learn that out from a pasuk. Let's see it inside. Tanan Hasam. Nosan yod, if you use your hand, or ragloi, or your foot, or ale yerakes, or edible leaves of vegetables, kedei sheyavru mayim lechavos, in order to channel live spring water into a jug for the mechatas, psulin. But if you use ale konim v'ale egoizim, the leaves of reeds or the leaves of walnuts which are not edible, and you channel it in, ksheira. What's the principle? Ze'aklau. This is the principle. Davar amekabel tumah. If you trail it with something that's susceptible to contamination, your hand, your foot is susceptible to contamination, and also leaves of vegetables which are mekabel tumah are susceptible to contamination. Psulin. Davar she'ein mekabel tumah. If you channel it with something that's not mekabel tumah, the leaves of reeds or the leaves of walnuts, she'ein. How do we know this? It's based on a pasuk. The pasuk says, Ach mayon ubar mikvei mayim, a spring or a mikvah of water, yiyeh tahar. And we learn out the word yiyeh tells us it has to be mahave. It has to come into being through an item that is definitively tar, not something that could be mekabel tumah. Now this pasuk also talks about the gathering of the water of the mechatas. Havayasan, it's coming into being has to be al yedei tahara tehei, through something that is definitively tar, not through a hand or a foot or leaves of vegetables that could be susceptible to contamination. Now, Amar Rab Chia, Amar Rab Yochanan, Zoi Seimeres, this discussion shows that aver kli kekli dami, that the airspace of a keli is like the keli. Why? Because the insistence that it should come to be means at the time right before it enters the keli. And since we're saying that if you trail it with your hand, now, if you trail it with your hand, that could be trailing horizontally. Doesn't have to be directly into the keli. But it's even a problem once it comes into the airspace of the keli, because that's as if it's in the keli. So therefore we see that the airspace of a keli is like the keli. Says the Gemara, Amalei Rabbi Zeira Lebchia Bar Abba Vidilma B'Shaises. Maybe this that we say is no good is only talking about where it goes straight into the keli from the hand without going through the air. So Amalei, so he said to him, Tarda, he used a very big, strong language. Tarda, Meshugana, lunatic. Kadeshi Yavru Mayim Luchavias Tanan. It says to pass the water to the barrel. In other words, when it says Kadeshi Yavru, to pass, it means it passes through the air. If it passes through the air, we see that when it goes into the airspace, it's as if it's in the keli. V'amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Amar Reb Yochanan, Me'edusai shel Rebbe Tzadok Nishnas Mishnazu. This Mishnah was taught from the testimony of Reb Tzadok. Ditnan heyet Reb Tzadok, ala zoichelin, water that's spring water that's running down a mountain. Shekilchan ba'alei agazim, that he channeled it using the leaves of walnuts. Shein ksherin, because those are not edible. So it's being mahava, it's coming into being through Tara. And Zehaya Maisa Ba'oholaya, there was such a case in Oholaya, Oba Maisa Lefnei Chachamim Belishkis Agazis, and the question was brought for review to the Chacham in the chamber of cut stone, the Sanhedrin Agadol V'chshiru, and they said it's good. Now, the Gemara gives us a new idea. If you go ahead and you shecht a bull, and then before you catch the blood, you nick the ear of the bull. Again, this is only something that a citizen of Bela Kinwood would do. I mean, you shecht the bull, and then you nick the ear. So now it's a balmum. And then you catch the blood. The din is that it's no good. He shechts the bull, it was perfectly unblemished. Then he nicks the ear and catches the blood. Puzzle, it's no good. A new meaning of why it says hapar. It has to be like the original par. Just like the original par, when you shechted it was unblemished. When you catch the blood, it has to be unblemished as well. Par shoya kvar. It has to be like it was before. So the Gemara says, okay, that's talking about the par kohen gadol. On Yom Kippur, that's Kodesh Kodashim. Ashkechan Kachay Kodashim. Kachim Kalim, what about a Shlomim? You shech the Shlomim, and then Mark comes and nicks the ear, and then you catch the blood. What's the din then? It's Kachim Kalim. Watch when you see Mark walking around with that little curved knife. Hold on to your ear. Mark and Mike Tyson, it's the same kind of Mike, But anyway, Mark doesn't even know who Mike Tyson is.
He doesn't know that he did something.
Right.
I actually met him once, Rabbi.
You met him? Let me see your ears. Yeah, they're okay. Anyway, for those that don't know, Mike Tyson was a famous podiatrist. Now,
Thought he was an ENT.
Maybe. Everything is in the interpretation.
40 hours.
Now, Amar Rabbi Zeira, excuse me. So Amar Rava, how do we know Kachim Kalim? Amar Rava Tanya says Samim Zachar Ben Shana, a sheep, unblemished, a male, 1 year old. That's what it says by the Pesach. Shei Samim, it should be unblemished, uben Shana, and a yearling b'shash shchita. Says the Gemara, that's only b'shash shchita. How do we know b'kabbalah b'ilacha b'zrika minayin? How do we know that it has to be whole at the time of catching the blood, at the time of taking it, and at the time of sprinkling? Talmud Lema Yiyah means Kol Havayosav Lo Yiyah, all of its existence should only be Tamu Ben Shana, unblemished and 1 year old. However, Abaye is going to show that this is just not true. The din is, and this has happened already to Barry more than once. They shech the carbon, and then they lose most of the carbon. The din is that you could be zarek the dam even if you just have a kazayas of basar or a kazayas of the sacrificial pieces of the emurim, of the chalavim. So obviously it doesn't have to be tomim by the zrika. All the karbanos in the Torah kazayas basar or kazayas chaylev, that there's left a kazayas of meat or a kazayas of chaylev, zarek es adam. You're allowed to sprinkle the blood. So obviously it doesn't have to be whole, a tamim throughout. So says the Gemara, Tirgama aben shana. You're right. It has to be a yearling, both at the time of the shchita and at the time of the zrika. So the Gemara says, but what do you mean? The shchita and the zrika has to be the same day. If the dam is kept over past shkia, it's disqualified. So how could it be a yearling when you do the shchita and not a yearling at the time of the zrika? It's a yearling when it's shechted it, and b'shas halacha v'zrika, and when you take it to the mizbeach and you sprinkle it, it's already ben shtaim, it's already 2 years old. How could that be? It's the same day. We see that we go a year me'es la'es. Very important. When Herschel goes to the market to buy a carbon, it comes with a very important birth date. Very important it has the birth date. First of all, you can't offer it until it's 8 days old. And then besides that, you have to know, and on the birth date, it has to say the hour. Because it's a year, me'es la'es, up to an hour. And that's what the Gemara says. If it's more than a year just by an hour, it's already possible. So you could have that it's only a yearling at the time of the shechita, and it's over the hill at the time of the zrika, and then that would be no good. Okay, now let me tell you what's happening now. We did the Mishnah Yomis already. Now we're going to have a special shir called for the Shabbos Koheles table, because we're learning Koheles this Shabbos. So, since I won't be in Fairways this Shabbos, I'm away. So if you want to hear the shir, you're not going to hear it on Shabbos. So if you have the time, you could join us, even if you're going to be here in Fairways for Shabbos. So, and Motzi Shabbos, shir is 9 o'clock.